To the middle. Sanheim, a shot. Score! Deflected by Konechny! And the Flyers take the lead with 23.5 seconds remaining. 2-1 Philadelphia.
After review, it was determined that the play was offside. We have no goal.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by Joe Fordyce, our Flyers pre- and post-game live producer. Joe, a couple of tough overtime losses for the Flyers, and the most recent one felt pretty crushing, considering the Flyers thought they had a win with 23.5 seconds left in regulation. The goal gets wiped away after league review deems it offside. But Joe, Rick Tocchet stayed mostly positive in his post-game press conference. He even said, hey, everyone thought we'd be in last place, so I've got to give these guys credit. I'm proud of them. I wonder if maybe that didn't sit well with some fans who were maybe a little frustrated with the offside, losing the game at overtime. But I think Tocchet had a point that, you know, they battled Edmonton, a really good team, down to the wire. Probably could have won the game. They didn't, but so far, I think there's more good than bad. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely more good than bad. And I think what may have sounded weird or different about what Tocchet said is we haven't heard him say anything like that yet. Particularly the last place comment. I mean, we could argue about whether it's true or not. I don't know that everybody said last place, but you know, nobody was saying they're going to contend for the division title. So he's right in that aspect. And listen, the last few games on home ice have not been great. And then they've kind of righted the ship when they went on the road following it. So they have a chance to do that coming up later this week. But I think, I mean, really, every game is a close game. They're in every game. They have a chance to win every game. A lot of times that's in large part due to their goaltending. If someone last year would have told you those things that I just said, you would have thought they were crazy, because last year there were games that were not close. The goaltending was seemingly letting them down almost a game-by-game basis. And I don't know, there was a point in games last year where the competitiveness kind of stopped, and I don't sense that this year. They're in every game. Even the game, there's been a couple games they're down multiple goals and they score late to get back into it and have a chance to tie the game. So I mean, if the question is more good than bad, I don't think it's even a question that there is more good than bad so far with this team. And I think the improvements both as a team and individually for certain players are impressive.
The Flyers are on a 4-game point streak. That probably got lost a little bit in the fact that the last 2 games were overtime losses that were really tough to stomach for the Flyers, games that they felt like they could have won. Joe, I really didn't have any problem with Tocchet highlighting positives. Like, unless you feel the need to beat up your team, I don't think you have to do that. Like, they're probably already pretty crushed after a game like that. They had an offside, take away a goal. It happens. We'll get more into the offside and whether Owen Tippett could have avoided that, or if it's really just one of those things that happens daily throughout a hockey game. But I think with Rick Tocchet, we've heard him be critical of his team. I think he was just saying what was on his mind, and a lot of it was he saw some positives. He feels like they're still in decent shape right now. They've done some good things. There are some things they can shore up, but I really didn't need him to go out there and rip his team after a game like that. Like, I don't think that really would have done much. And if that's not how he felt, I don't need him to just try to manufacture that or fake it. If that's how he felt, and I think he's got a point. Like, So far through 16 games, they're really not in bad shape.
Yeah, and listen, it's not like he didn't say anything critical. He said they have to hit the net more. They missed the net, and quite frankly, that's probably the difference in the game last night. It's a 1-1 game heading into overtime, and the Flyers missed the net on some pretty prime opportunities. So it's not as if he sugarcoated everything at all. I think Talk's a guy that's coached enough in this league to know when to pick his spots to send a message or to prop his team up. And with the way that game ended, from the thinking you're going to win it and then losing it right after, he felt like that was a spot where his team maybe needed to just, pump their tires up a little bit. Yeah. And that's what he did. So it might have been the way, like, I think if he didn't make the comment about everyone expected us to be in last place, that this wouldn't have even been a topic. Just because of the way he said it. I mean, they're going out there and battling every night. And I think that's his point. They're out there battling every night, regardless of who the competition is. They're in all of these games. And just when you think they're down, they bounce back. Just like when they came off the last back-to-back losses at home and they go to Montreal and everyone thinks they're down and they win an impressive game. And now they have a chance to do the same thing. You'd want to see some better results on home ice recently. I think the last 4 home games probably, leave a little bit to be desired. But it's the ebbs and flows of a season. We're 16 games in, and when you look at pretty much everybody in the Eastern Conference, the Flyers are right in there. They are in striking distance of the top, and they're also near, in striking distance of the bottom. And that's pretty much every team in the Eastern Conference right now. And, I mean, what more can you ask for them to be right in the thick of things?
And Rick Tocchet was asked a couple times about Owen Tippett's offside. It's not like he totally deflected and didn't address, obviously, what was a glaring thing that cost the Flyers. And Joe, he mentioned that, there needs to be a little more focus there by Owen Tippett, understanding that, you have to make sure you're not offside, especially there. Joe, in my mind, I can't really beat up Owen Tippett too much for that, because how often do you see that throughout a game? It's just not called because a goal has to be almost scored on that type of, with how close it was on that offside. Is there a little bit of lack of focus? Sure. But I feel like that is something that we see a lot throughout the course of a game. It just becomes under the microscope late in the game when a goal is scored and the league has to review it for that potential offside. But I don't know. I think I'm not going to put the entire loss on Owen Tippett's shoulders. I just don't think that's totally fair.
No, I don't think it's fair either. And, I think, again, Tocchet is to pick and choose his spots where he's going to criticize a guy. I don't know that that's worth it. Like you said, these things happen all the time. We know he's an attention to detail guy. So I'm sure behind closed doors, this is being addressed. Just not out in the public. I mean, how many times do we see in a game where a guy's coming to center ice and he dumps the puck in, and it's definitely behind the red line, but it's not called an icing because it's like the neighborhood rule at second base, with double plays in baseball. But when you have a play that decides a game, all of a sudden it's under a different sort of microscope. And so every little thing gets called and it's there for everyone to see. Yeah. So I agree with you for sure. I do think the focus is probably being addressed. I don't think it's being made a huge deal of, but just better safe than sorry when entering the zone with the puck. And, you want to keep, Talk did in his presser last night talk a lot about puck possession. He talked about giving up puck possession, flipping the puck in, this is another example of them giving up a possession. And so I'm sure it's being addressed. I just don't think everything needs to be addressed immediately after the game in the heat of the moment to the media. So I think it's being addressed. It's just not everything has to be out there for everyone to hear.
I think it's very obviously being addressed too, because Rick Tocchet the other day talked about Owen Tippett and how he's in and out of the game a little too much, basically saying he needs to be consistently engaged. Like, Tippett obviously has all the tools in the world, and it's a matter of really being involved in the game consistently every single shift, not floating in and out of the game. And Tocchet told us about that and said that's something they've addressed with Owen Tippett, and Tippett knows it too. I think he really does know, and I just think the timing's really poor because he's in a goal drought too. That was his 10th game without a goal, so eyes are on him right now. His coach just talked about him being more focused in games, and then boom, he gets hit with an offside at the worst possible time, and he's a smidge offside. If he was a foot offside, I'd be like, man, what is Owen Tippett doing? He needs to be better there. He needs to be more aware, but he's a smidge offside, and I feel like that happens a lot throughout the course of a game. It's just unfortunate at the timing when it happened, and the Flyers scored a goal, and it cost them ultimately probably a win. But I think Tippett maybe will be better because of this. He will, his antenna will go up a little bit more now throughout the game and make sure he's doing the right things out there and staying involved and staying consistently focused throughout a game.
Yeah, I agree. And, the guys, the referees and linesmen on the ice didn't catch it themselves. Yeah. So once you hear New York gets involved, Toronto gets involved, New York, I'm thinking, that you're probably in bad shape in terms of that play, because it's kind of like if the FBI shows up at your door, they pretty much already know you're guilty. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things that once the call was made, you figured it was an offsides. And, you mentioned the other thing too, his 10th game without a goal. And I think this is probably the bigger issue with Tippett, is that what we've seen in the past with him seems to be going on at the start of the season. There's a 3-4 game stretch where he's the hottest player in the league. He scores 6 goals in 5 games, or 5 and 4, whatever it is. And then he disappears for 10 games. That is the bigger issue. And I think it's a trickle down effect when that happens. And then all of a sudden, some of that focus sort of understandably might start to lack. Yeah. Because you're pressing. It's just like like in baseball, a hitter in a slump, everything contributes to the slump. And I think that's a lot of what's going on here.
I couldn't agree more. If fans want to be on Owen Tippett for being streaky, I think they have a fair point there. I think that's a fair criticism, and I think it's something he knows, that he is streaky, and he needs to try to figure that out a little bit more. But to really chastise him for being a hair offside, I mean, I just think that's a little unfair. But the streaky label is something he has fought here for parts of 5 seasons. Is, like you mentioned, Joe, 5 goals in the first 6 games, and the next 10 without a goal. And Rick Tocchet talked about that today at an optional practice on Thursday, and said, we're determined to work with this kid. Like, I know some people don't think he's a kid anymore, but he's 26. He can still get better. He's in the prime of his career. If not, he can get better. They're determined to work with him and try to make him more of a consistent player, because the tools are there, Joe. There's no denying that he has high-end tools from power, speed, and skill that teams really covet. And I think it would be a shame if they just gave up because he's streaky right now.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you look at last night early in the game, he rips a shot that hits the crossbar right in the beginning of the game. We're talking about a hot streak if that puck goes in the net. Maybe, and probably we're not talking about an offsides in overtime if that puck goes in the net. So everything maybe is just this much off, and it changes the whole narrative around everything. So maybe, who knows, maybe the crossbar is a sign he's getting closer to finding one of those hot streaks. but I really think that consistency is the key with this player. He's honestly one of the streakiest players I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember a guy who seems like he can't be stopped and then just off the map after that. It's kind of puzzling when you really start to think about what causes these things to happen, because it's not like we've seen him score against good teams and score against bad teams. We've seen him be that dominant sort of power forward player against good teams. We've seen him do it against bad teams, and we've seen him not do it against good teams and bad teams. So it's not about the opponent. It really is a mystery.
Yeah.
I mean, I found that streaky guys in sports to be a mystery kind of in general. I mean, other than the mindset when you're going, you're going. I mean, it's everybody goes hot streaks, slumps, and stuff like that. And there's extremes, and his extremes are the are just, in thinking about it, some of the most extreme that I remember any hockey player having.
No doubt. And man, Wednesday night, you were right. That it was truly a game of inches for Owen Tippett from that shot that hit iron early in the game. If that goes in, man, how do things change maybe for Owen Tippett and the game in general? And then, of course, the offside, where just barely offside, and it cost the Flyers. But Joe, I think a lot of people are just wondering how they want to feel about this team right now. I think some people see the glass half full, some see it half empty. They are 8-5-3, a lot of close games. They've had their 4-3-3 in games decided by one goal. They've gone to overtime 7 times through 16 games. I mean, almost half their games have gone to overtime. Where do you see the Flyers right now, and do you see more positives or do you see more negatives?
Yeah, it's definitely more positives. When you think about this, last year, did you go into games thinking they were going to compete with high-level teams? Let's say a Montreal. I'm not saying Montreal last year. I'm saying a team that was as hot as Montreal was, or a Winnipeg like they did, things like that. Probably not during any point of last season. And now I think you're starting to expect it. You're starting to expect this team to be in every game. Mm-hmm. There gets to a point in these games where the gap in skill level plays itself out. That's not something new, though. We knew that this team needs to add more skill. That's not anything that's a mystery to anyone. So when you play the Edmontons and you get into overtime and you're looking out there, not that he was on the ice when they scored, or either of these guys, but like you're looking at, okay, they're sending McDavid and Draisaitl out. You don't have anything on that level of skill. When you see Montreal in overtime and they send Cole Caulfield out there with Demidov or whoever it is they choose to send out there, Suzuki, you don't have that skill level. You knew that before they played the first game. Mm-hmm. So when you break it down to that, I think you have to there's way more positives than there are negatives with this team right now. And the biggest positive is no one's talking about goaltending.
Yeah.
But they're really not. They're talking about Dan Vladar in a good way when it comes to goaltending, but Dan Vladar is giving this team chance to win every game. Sam Ersson, he's struggled a couple games. He's looked good in other games, but either way, their goaltending is giving them chances to win games. There's very few games this year where you can say their goaltending didn't give them a chance. And last year, particularly down the stretch, that's all we saw, I think, is just underwhelming goaltending. And no one's talking about that. I feel like there's a little bit of, in terms of fan reaction, I feel like there's a little bit of what have you done for me lately with not seeing the scope of just recently we had probably AHL level goaltending, and now it's much better than that. And then you just move on to the next thing. There's a skill deficit with a lot of teams. There just is. They will try to address that. They have a big offseason coming up next season. But right now they have the guys who they have, and they're in every game pretty much with a chance to win. I don't think you can ask for much more than that. So I'm definitely on the glass half full side of that scenario.
I also see more good than bad. I see two critical things that are giving the Flyers a good base, and that's goaltending, which everyone has pleaded for, was better goaltending. They go out, they get a guy, and he's been very good, Dan Vladar. 8 of his 10 starts, he's given up 2 or fewer goals. So they're getting goaltending, and I just think defensively they've been very good. They're limiting shots. They're making life easier on the goaltender. To me, those are two critical things to have as a base. And now they just need to score. And I think they have the talent to score. I don't think they're going to light up scoreboards. I never thought they were. But they have guys on this team that can make some plays and score a little bit. But their power play's been better. Their PK is very good. They've improved in a lot of key areas. They're just not getting enough offense, and it's led to a lot of close games and some heartbreak from time to time. But the fact that they are in games and they're doing it with defense and goaltending, man, that to me is a win for the Flyers.
Yeah, and you're starting to see some signs that maybe the offense is coming around. Mishkov's starting to score. Travis Konechny, an 8-game point streak now. You mentioned the power play. Cam York really looks like he's come into his own in quarterbacking that power play and kind of setting guys up as he set up Mishkov last night for his goal. So there's signs that things are coming around. But again, what you alluded to, they're not going to light up scoreboards because they don't have high-end talent to light up scoreboards. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the idea that they're out there and they held McDavid and Draisaitl in check is pretty good. Yeah. If you would have told people that before the game, I think they would have signed up for it right then. So I think everybody needs to take a step back and say, to me, in this rebuild, since they first acknowledged the rebuild, this has been their biggest jump in terms of improvement. It's a 16-game sample size. There's time for things to go the other way, but there's also time for things to get even better. And to me, I think, as Rick Tocchet said last night, you have to give them credit. This is he wasn't. Talk wasn't here for all that other stuff up to this point. He's here now, and I think you've seen the biggest jump in terms of improvement overall than at any point during the rebuild.
Yeah, and Joe, a couple of things I should say that have really made me think more positives than bad is, what do you want to see when you have a new head coach? You want to see some changes. And I think 2 changes that they preached a lot throughout camp in the preseason, they've implemented pretty well. And that is, 1, blocking fewer shots, allowing goaltenders to see shots and making sure they're seeing less post-to-post, grade A opportunities. I think they've done that. And 2, I think they've played more of a possession game. And maybe at times that's boring a little bit. It tends to lead to fewer shots for the Flyers. But I do feel like they are a better possession team, which has led to way fewer man rushes, way fewer up and down track meet type of hockey. So I give Tocchet credit there. I think he wanted to do 2 things, and I feel like we've seen it. If they were preaching it and then we didn't see it, I'd say, well, that's a problem. But I think they've wanted to make changes because they had to, and we're starting to see it be incorporated, and I think players are picking it up, which I think's a good sign.
Yeah, and I think what you can also point to that may not have been the case in the last few seasons, even going back to when Alain Vigneault was here. when a topic is addressed. So, example is when we heard Tocchet at his most critical was probably after the last 2 home losses, prior to the most recent 2. And then what happens? They come back and look like those exact things that he talks about have been worked on. I feel like far too many times of the last few years, there would be a criticism, and then that stuff would continue to fester and even get worse in some cases. And I don't think we're seeing that. So what do I think? I think we're going to see tomorrow and Saturday is valuing possessions more.
Yeah.
That's what Rick Tocchet talked about last night, not just flipping the puck out. When I think someone, I don't believe it was you, but someone asked in there, how do you correct some of the things that went on? And he said, keep the puck.
Yeah.
Because there were times last night where I remember thinking to myself, why would you flip the puck up like that?
Yeah.
Why just get, especially against a team like that?
Yeah.
So I expect that to be addressed. And I think that tells you when Rick Tocchet has a message to get through, it gets through. And I think that's a good sign.
Agreed. I think they are playing for the coach. And you're right, Joe. I have not seen bad trends really bleed from game to game. And that's really what you want to see too. Like you said, find what is not working, fix it, and see if they respond. They have responded well to Rick Tocchet so far. So that's another positive right there.
Yeah, and after those previous 2 home games, his big thing was getting guys in front of the net. He mentioned at the end of a game sequence, 2 guys went to the posts rather than get in front of the net. And what do we see in the first period of the game against Montreal? Guys are in front of the net. They're scoring goals because guys are in the front of the net. It's a message and immediate action to correct that mistake. And it's not like once it's corrected, every game's going to go exactly the same way. I mean, there are other guys on the other team that are paid to stop them from doing what they want. Yeah. So it's not like everything's going to go their way, but you're seeing clear signs that these messages are being taken and absorbed and put into action. And I think that is a good sign for a coach that's 16 games in with this group that he has.
So we will see how the Flyers respond to these tough overtime losses. They hit the road for a weekend back-to-back set. Friday and Saturday, the games on NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus. Joe Fordyce, our Flyers pre- and post-game live producer, will have you covered before and after both those games. Joe, thank you so much as always. Great to see you. Great to chat with you. A huge thank you to Tom Feiner for helping us here on the Flyers Talk podcast as well. And Flyers fans, as always, thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, please rate and listen, and we cannot wait to talk to you next time.